On my father's birthday, he stood up and said that my children were not my husband's. I still remember the way the light from the birthday candles flickered across my father's face. He looked peaceful, happy, even, surrounded by family, laughter, and the subtle clink of wine glasses. It was the kind of evening I used to long for as a child, warm, full of noise and people who loved each other, or at least pretended to. The kids had just finished singing. My youngest, Ava, was still clapping her hands, crumbs from her cupcake dotting her dress. My husband, Daniel, had his arm around my chair. My father smiled. He leaned forward, took a breath, and blew out the candles in one steady stream. Everyone applauded. And then, just as quickly as the applause faded, he said it. Loud. Clear. In the silence that always follows a wish. I don't know how we're all celebrating here like everything's fine, he began, standing, one hand steadying himself on the table's edge. But someone has to say it. Those children are not Daniel's. The room went still. I thought I'd misheard. I stared at him, expecting, praying, that there was a punchline coming. That maybe it was some poorly told joke, one of his misguided attempts at dark humor. But no one laughed. My mother's face drained of color. My sister froze mid-sip of wine. Daniel's arm slipped away from my chair. And my father just stood there, eyes fixed on me. As if daring me to deny it. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My throat locked up, my breath caught in my chest like a fist had closed around it. Daniel was the first to react. Slowly, deliberately, he stood from his chair. "What the hell are you talking about?" he said, his voice low but shaking. Dad didn't look at him. He was still staring at me. "You know what I'm talking about," he said, louder now. "I saw the tests. I heard what your brother said." "What tests?" I finally choked out. "What are you insane?" He stepped back from the table like the room had suddenly become dangerous. "Don't lie to me. Don't stand there, in front of your kids, and lie. I deserve better than that. He deserves better than that." Daniel turned to me then. His eyes were wide, but not angry. "Not yet. Just searching. You told me I was their father," he said. I felt dizzy. "Because you are," I said, my voice cracking. But the words hit the floor like glass. Shattered and useless. The rest was a blur. My sister grabbed the kids and ushered them into the next room. My mother tried to calm my father, whispering something frantic and urgent in his ear, but he swatted her away. Daniel just stood there, looking at me like he no longer recognized me. I kept saying it, again and again, "It's not true, it's not true," like a mantra, like it could rewind the moment and stuff the words back into my father's throat. But it didn't matter. The damage was already done. We left separately. Daniel walked out without a word. He didn't even look at me when he passed. My father sat back down, like a man who'd completed his duty. I stood in the doorway, shaking, empty. When I finally got home that night, the lights in the hallway buzzed like they were angry. Daniel's car was in the driveway, but the house was silent. I stepped inside and found him sitting on the edge of the bed, still fully dressed, staring at the floor. "I didn't cheat on you," I said quietly. "I know," he said, just as quietly. But he didn't look at me. "Then why?" "Because I can't be sure anymore." That was the moment. The crack. Everything that followed was just the sound of it spreading. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in Ava's room, holding her as she snored softly against my chest, her little body oblivious to the wreckage unfolding around her. My phone buzzed at 3:14 a.m. A message from my father. "I'm sorry. But it needed to be said." I stared at it for a long time. Not angry. Not yet. Just cold. And confused. Why would he do that? Why now? Why me? The next morning, Daniel was gone. Not just out running errands. Gone. His clothes. His toothbrush. The charger from his nightstand. The drawer where he kept his passport, empty. There was a note on the kitchen table. "I need time. I need to think. Don't call me." I called anyway. It rang once. Then straight to voicemail. The worst part wasn't the moment it happened. It was the days after, the stillness, the space, the way the house felt suddenly too large for just me and the kids. Every sound was louder. The closing of a cabinet door. The hum of the fridge. The soft patter of Ava's feet across the hallway. And the absence of Daniel's voice, his footsteps, his toothbrush beside mine, that was deafening. I kept waiting for a message. An explanation. An apology from my father. A single word from Daniel. Anything. But there was nothing. I texted him the next day. Can we talk? No reply. Please. Even for 5 minutes. Read. No response. I wasn't angry at Daniel. I was terrified. Terrified of what was happening. Of what was being believed. Terrified that something so absurd, so baseless, could unmake the life we'd built in a single evening. He had every reason to trust me. But words mean nothing when someone you love gets a grenade lobbed into their chest and is told to smile through the shrapnel. I called my sister. She picked up quickly. I don't know what he was thinking, she said before I could say anything. Did he talk to you before? I asked. Did he say anything? Did he mention? No, she said. He's been weird lately. Tense. I thought maybe it was work. Where did this even come from? I whispered, pacing the kitchen. There's no test. I've never even looked at another man. How could he? I don't know. But when Dad gets something in his head. I sat down hard on the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinet. He doesn't let go, I finished for her. I started replaying every moment with my father in my head. Searching for signs. Hints. He'd always been protective. Sometimes overly so. But he was proud of me. He loved Daniel. He used to brag about him to his friends, how steady he was, how he was a good father, how he grounded me. He came to every birthday party, every recital, every school event. He was never cruel. Never like that. So why? On the 3rd day, I called him. He picked up after 2 rings. Hello. His voice was calm. Too calm. What the hell is wrong with you? I said, not bothering to say hello. There was a pause. I'm sorry I had to do it that way, he said. But it was going to come out eventually. There is nothing to come out, I snapped. What are you even talking about? What tests? What proof? I saw something, he said. On your brother's computer. He didn't mean to show me. But it was there. My brother? I said, incredulous. What does he have to do with anything? He exhaled, slow. He was helping Daniel with some paperwork. He had scanned documents on his desktop. I opened one by accident. And what? I hissed. You found some random piece of paper and just decided to blow up my marriage? You didn't even ask me. You just stood up and announced it to the world. I asked him, he said. That stopped me. You asked Daniel? He didn't deny it, my father said, as if that were the same thing as a confession. No, I said slowly. He didn't know what the hell you were talking about. Just like me. Silence. Dad, I said. You lied. You made all of that up in your head. You made assumptions. And now my husband is gone. He didn't say anything. I don't know if he's coming back. I didn't want to hurt you, he said softly. Then why did you? Still, he didn't answer. That night, I cried. Not just the tears that come in waves, but the kind that rack your body, leave you breathless, leave your eyes stinging and your throat raw. The kind of crying you do when you're mourning something that isn't gone yet, but you know deep down it probably will be. Daniel's things were still gone. He hadn't asked about the kids. Hadn't sent a message. Nothing. I kept my phone on loud every night, just in case. Every morning, I checked it first thing. Nothing. On the 5th day, my mother called. She was quiet, hesitant. I'm sorry, she said. For what he did. I nodded into the silence. He's been not himself. Mom, I said. He stood up. At a birthday party. And accused me of. I know, she interrupted. I know what he said. Then quietly, I think he wanted to hurt someone. And he didn't know how to deal with what he saw. There's nothing to deal with. I know, she said again. But it didn't sound convincing. Does he even care? I asked. Does he know what he's done? There was a long pause. I think, she said, he's trying not to. I started keeping a journal. Not because I needed to write things down, but because I needed somewhere to place my sanity. I wrote. My father destroyed my marriage on a suspicion. Daniel left without even fighting. I'm stuck here, holding the truth like a useless trophy. No one wins. I didn't tell the kids anything. They were too young to understand why Daddy wasn't home. I said he had to work out of town. I said he'd call soon. But every night when Ava asked when he'd be back, I had to swallow the words, I don't know. Because I really didn't. 2 weeks. That's how long it took for me to stop expecting the sound of Daniel's key in the door. I still listened for it. Late at night, when the kids were asleep and the house was at its quietest, I'd sit on the couch, heart racing at every car that passed the driveway, every creak in the floorboards. But eventually, even hope runs out of fuel. You don't realize it at first. It just fades quietly. Like a candle that dies not with a flicker, but a slow curl of smoke. The kids asked less often where he was. That hurt more than their questions. Because it meant they were adjusting. Accepting. At bedtime, Ava said, maybe Daddy's house has animals. Like a raccoon. I nodded. Maybe. I didn't correct her. Because it was easier than saying, I don't know where he is. I started doing everything alone. Groceries. Bills. Baths. School runs. Not because I had to, I'd done most of it before anyway, but because now, it felt different. Now it was all on me. And every quiet moment reminded me of what was missing. Not just Daniel, but the feeling of being backed. Of being believed without having to prove myself. One afternoon, I went through my phone and looked at old photos. Pictures of us. Vacations, dinners, lazy Sundays. In one, we were lying on the grass at the park. He had his arm around my shoulders, and I was laughing so hard I'd fallen halfway off the blanket. His eyes were squinted, smiling at me like I was the only person in the world. I stared at that photo for a long time. And I wondered, where did he go? Not Daniel. But the version of him who trusted me without hesitation. Who would have fought anyone who tried to hurt me? Who would have never walked out without looking back? My sister came over on a Tuesday. She brought wine and sat at the kitchen table, watching the kids draw on the floor with crayons. She didn't bring up the party. She didn't bring up Dad. She just said, you look thinner. I'm not eating much. You should. I nodded. I know. She reached across the table and touched my hand. He might come back. You know that, right? Yeah, I said. But what if I don't want him to? She blinked, surprised. You don't? I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure yet. That night, I finally opened the drawer with Daniel's things. It had been untouched since he left, the drawer where he kept receipts, spare keys, random bits of mail. It still smelled like him. Sharp, clean. I sifted through it slowly. A pack of gum. A pen I bought him last Christmas. A faded photo strip of us from a photo booth, years ago. And a folded piece of paper. A copy of the kids' birth certificates. Why? Why would he take everything else, and leave these? I ran my fingers over Ava's name, the familiar signature of the doctor at the bottom. It hit me then. That's what Dad must have seen on my brother's computer. A scan of this. Of these. Nothing damning. Just, out of context. Was that enough to break everything? Apparently. I stared at those documents until tears blurred the text. And then, for the first time in days, I felt something that wasn't grief. I felt rage. Not at Daniel. Not at myself. At my father. Because he looked me in the eye and chose to believe a rumor over a lifetime of trust. He stood in front of everyone, and called me a liar. And he never even asked if it was true. I called him again. This time, I didn't wait for him to speak. You broke something, I said. He exhaled through the phone. I thought I was protecting him. From me? He didn't answer. I want you to understand something, I said. Daniel didn't leave because of what you said. He left because you said it. Still, silence. I don't know if I can forgive you. He said, almost whispering, I don't expect you to. That night, I packed a small bag. Not to leave. But because I needed out, even if just for a day. I dropped the kids off with my sister. Drove 2 hours north. Checked into a small inn near the lake. It was quiet. Stark. Clean. I sat on the bed with my bag at my feet and stared at the wall. I wasn't escaping. I was choosing stillness. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was waiting. I wasn't waiting for a message. A knock. An apology. I was just being. And in that stillness, a thought finally settled in. Daniel might never come back. And maybe. That wouldn't destroy me. The lake was quiet that morning. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask for your thoughts, it just holds them. I sat on the old bench behind the inn, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, drinking instant coffee from a chipped mug. Across the water, a pair of ducks skimmed the surface. I watched their ripples fan outward until they reached the shore, then faded. That's how everything felt now, echoes of a life I still belonged to, but could no longer feel under my feet. And yet, for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was falling apart. I felt aware. Aware that I was still standing. I stayed one more night. I didn't tell anyone where I was. Not my sister. Not my father. Not Daniel. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't a cry for attention. It was a pause. A breath. A moment to decide if I wanted to keep carrying the weight of other people's mistakes on my back. When I returned home, the house was still. My sister had dropped off the kids while I was driving back. They were napping on the couch, tangled in blankets, cartoons playing softly in the background. And there, on the kitchen table, was a phone I'd turned off for 2 days. I pressed the button. Notifications buzzed to life. Among the clutter, a message. From Daniel. I've been thinking about everything. Can we talk? No anger. No accusations. Just 7 words. I stared at them for a long time. Then typed back. When? We met at a cafe halfway between his friend's place, where he'd been staying, and ours. It was neutral ground. He looked tired. I probably did too. He didn't try to hug me. He didn't reach for my hand. We sat down. We stared at our coffees. He was the first to speak. I believed it because I was afraid, he said. Not because I thought you'd lie to me. I didn't reply right away. I looked at those papers, he went on. The ones with the birth info. The scans your brother had. There was nothing there. Nothing weird. Nothing that meant anything. I know, I said. He nodded. But when your dad said it, I panicked. I trusted him. He looked so sure. That doesn't excuse it, I said. Not harshly, just plainly. He looked up at me then. I didn't come here to defend myself, he said. I came here to say I'm sorry. I swallowed hard. Why didn't you just ask me? I said. Why didn't you come to me first? He closed his eyes for a second. Because I didn't want to know the answer. That landed like a stone in my stomach. We talked for 2 hours. Not about reconciliation. Not yet. About us. About fear. About trust. About what it means to truly believe someone, even when your world starts to shake. He told me he missed the kids. That he'd been afraid to call because he didn't know what I'd told them. I didn't tell them anything, I said. I couldn't. I didn't have a story that made sense. He nodded, staring at the table. I miss them, he whispered. Then, more quietly, I miss you. When we parted, I didn't promise anything. But I said, let's talk again. Soon. And he said, okay. No kiss. No big gesture. But something passed between us as we stood in the parking lot, a sense that maybe, just maybe, not everything was broken. That night, after the kids were in bed, I called my father. He picked up quickly. I talked to Daniel, I said. He didn't respond. He knows the truth now. Silence. I'm not calling to rehash everything, I continued. I'm calling to say this, I'm not ready to forgive you. And I don't know if I ever will. Still silence. But I need you to hear me when I say this, you don't get to speak for me ever again. Finally, he said, I understand. I hope you do, I said. Because I lost something I might never get back. And that's on you. I hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just sat there, in the living room Daniel and I used to share, breathing in the aftermath of honesty. Later, I wrote in my journal. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's letting go of the idea that what happened could have gone any differently. I can't change what he did. I can only decide who I become after it. I don't know yet what's next for Daniel and me. We haven't talked about moving back in. Or therapy. Or rebuilding. But the fact that he wants to talk, really talk, matters. It means maybe the damage isn't permanent. That maybe, even after the sharpest rupture, some things can still be sewn back together. Weeks passed. We didn't rush anything. Daniel visited the kids on weekends at first. He took them to the park. Out for pancakes. Stayed a little longer each time. One night, Ava fell asleep in his lap on the couch, and I saw something in his eyes, not guilt, not hesitation, but grief. Quiet, humble grief for what he almost let go. He tucked her in that night, kissed her forehead. And then he kissed mine. Not passionately. Not possessively. Just gently. Like apology. Like promise. We started having dinner together again. Not every night, but enough that it didn't feel strange. He didn't move back in. His toothbrush didn't return to the holder beside mine. But the space between us began to shrink, not with words, but with presence. We learned to talk again. Learned to listen. To sit in silence without needing to fill it with blame. One evening, he said it plainly, I was weak. I didn't say, I know. I said, so was I. For waiting on you to fix something that wasn't your mess to fix. He nodded. We were different people now. Still married, technically. But in every way that mattered, we were rebuilding something new, from the ashes of what had burned. My father kept his distance. He sent a letter once. Not an email. A handwritten letter. Inside were 2 pages, one apology, one explanation. He said he'd been struggling with his health. That fear had made him act impulsively. That he confused intuition with proof. That he thought he was protecting me from heartbreak, and instead caused it. He said he regretted every word. He asked nothing. Didn't beg for forgiveness. Just said he was sorry, and he would wait as long as I needed. I didn't write back. But I didn't tear it up either. I put it in a box in my closet. With old photos. With the first Valentine Daniel ever gave me. With the drawing Ava made of our family, the one where she drew 5 hearts instead of 4, because one was for the dog we didn't have yet. Closure doesn't come with fanfare. It comes in small moments. A coffee shared without tension. A laugh that doesn't feel rehearsed. A child's question that no longer hurts to answer. It comes when the pain stops screaming and starts whispering. One day, I found Daniel sitting in the backyard, watching the kids chase each other barefoot in the grass. He looked up at me, squinting against the sun. Do you think we'll be okay? He asked. I sat down beside him. I think we already are, I said. Or at least, closer than we've been. He nodded. I don't know if I deserve another chance. You're not the only one who broke something, I said. He looked at me then. Really looked. Not searching for what he lost. But seeing what remained. We didn't plan a big reunion. No second wedding. No dramatic vows under the stars. We simply lived. One morning at a time. He moved back in. Not because everything was perfect. But because we chose to try again. Together. I never told the kids what happened. Maybe one day I will. When they're old enough to understand how love bends, stretches, and sometimes breaks, but doesn't always vanish. How family can fail you. And how healing isn't about forgetting the pain, but remembering who you are after it. I no longer expect apologies from people who waited too long to give them. But I've learned to recognize the quiet strength in staying soft when the world tries to make you hard. In the end, the scandal faded. The story shrank to a sentence in our history. But the lesson stayed. That trust, once cracked, isn't rebuilt with time. It's rebuilt with truth. And choice. Every day. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.